Welcome back, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Mirage F1C-200. The Mirage F1C has been changed quite a fair bit since the last time I made a video, so I thought why not remake it now as the time is kinda right for it. The Mirage has been changed in the flight model. It holds its speed much better, it does turn a bit better at higher speed, the engine has been tweaked a little bit as well. Overall, this thing doesn't feel anywhere near the same as it did about a year ago. The main ornament, however, is still going to be your two magics. The Defas are still Defas, they are not that fantastic. The Super 530Fs are simply very mid, and I'll get into that in a second why. And then you have a third missile slot. I mean, I run the 530E. Most of the time it doesn't connect, it's slow, it's kind of funny to use, it's more of a meme missile, but overall this thing is largely useless. The main thing here is going to be the two Magic 2s, and the two Magic 2s, just like the airframe itself, actually got changed as well. The Magic 2s now are more flare resilient. They do go through flares quite often. They're not quite A9M or R73 levels, but they are definitely up there among the best missiles to just not give a shit about flares being popped. They are good, but they're also basically the only real good thing about the plane. Now you can also carry some bombs on the way to the battlefield, but this thing is simply not fast enough. Now you can put some bombs in between here, but keep in mind you are at 11.3, a lot of your games are going to be 12.0 to 12.3 even. And then you're not even going to be reaching the base without being intercepted. The good thing about this plane is that a lot of people just kind of ignore you because they know it's mid, and well, they are right. But let me show you just exactly why that is. The Mirage is a plane that you have to fly in a particular manner. You just kind of want to stay out of trouble. You don't have to play it as much as a complete rat fighter, because if you get behind people with these Magic 2s, most of the time they will end up eating shit, which is absolutely fantastic. But when it comes to the head-on, you need to be careful with the Magic 2 because it doesn't prime as quickly as something like an R73 for example. And the radar missiles that you have are just not really it. But I'll show you exactly why that is after the first clip that I have here. But the short story of it, they're slow as balls and they take forever to get off the rail. But the rest of the plane that is somewhat useful, let's talk about that first. The flight performance is actually pretty damn good now, at least for a French plane. It doesn't really lose any speed anymore when you are going at Mach or even higher, and in this regard it feels kind of like a subsonic. The caveat to this, however, is that you are gonna be constantly passing out. I'm tapping my elevator constantly, I'm on a maxed out crew with an expert qualification, and I still pass out very often in this thing. You will overshoot because of this, you really need to be careful with your speed. Luckily most of your enemies are gonna be like this F-16. And they are just gonna be so busy trying to run away from you while also turning that they just sit it within a kilometer, and they are gonna be absolutely smited by the new Magic 2. The retention also goes hand in hand with not losing speed when you want it to. When you have someone on your 6 that is very adamant about killing you, you're gonna have a very hard time shaking them off you. Now you do have an absolute metric shitload of countermeasures, which is definitely welcome, and it makes so that you can pre-flare and you don't have to maneuver as much when it comes to getting people off your 6. However, if they do stick it and they don't do what that F-16 did or what this J7E that's about to jump us is about to do, then you're not gonna have too great of a time. Now you can dogfight with Phantoms and stuff nowadays, and it doesn't get slammed by absolutely everything anymore, but it's basically a missile boat without the good missiles. It only has 2 of them. I'm gonna try the air brake because I need to get this guy to overshoot. If we go prolonged, I die anyway, so I need to kill him as fast as possible. So I try to lock him up with my radar sight, and at this point if he keeps pulling in that direction he will outpull me, and I don't have the range to arc in the Magic 2. However, he then breaks off and gives me an aspect, and the missile just goes straight through the flares and it slams him out of the air. Sounds good, seems good. It doesn't work most of the time, and I want you to take a look at what happens when I prime that missile. I lock him up, I now press the button, you see it powering up. It takes like 2 or 3 seconds before you can even fire it. Now when someone is climbing to orbit like this and just not maneuvering, and this guy is 100% AFK, and the fact that this is my example kill should tell you enough. I've gotten like 5 kills with this fucking missile. It is absolutely atrocious. If they chaff at all, even if they don't dodge it properly, they are likely just gonna be dodging it. If people chaff behind the guy you're shooting at, they are likely just gonna dodge it on accident. The missile takes forever to be launched, and after it's launched it's also slower than all the other missiles. So if someone locks you up first in the head-on, or even if you lock him up 5 seconds before they do, by the time your missile reaches them, you are already gonna be dead. Now the missile is pretty maneuverable. It is a pretty good missile if you aren't looking at the Seeker. The issue is the Seeker is a very big portion of the missile. It's like saying, yeah, this is the best race car ever made, except it doesn't have any wheels. It doesn't get very far without the wheels, despite the rest being absolutely fantastic. And that's the main issue with these. And then you also have the 530E that I have on the bottom. You can also run the other one, or just nothing at all, which is pretty valid. The missile isn't that great. I just find it absolutely hilarious when you make it cruise into someone. It's super slow. It kind of dogfights them, kind of sits on the ass, but everyone is so vigilant nowadays that it never really connects anymore. The 2 times it did connect, I end up stealing the kill because the missile was in the air for so long. By the time it finally reached them, someone else had already set them on fire. Here we have the premium F4EJ. Now this thing I'm not really too worried about in a dogfight. I'm just gonna go up, I dodge his guns, and then I'm just gonna slowly but surely kind of turn into him. Now I don't want him to go too vertical because he does outpower us. The thing is that we don't speed bleed that much, and we are able to just kind of sit within its turning circle. Now if the F4EJ actually just runs away, there's not much we can do if we don't have magics, but we do. So if he does try to extend away, he's gonna end up eating a missile, or he's gonna end up eating a tree. In this case he chose the tree. It's okay when it comes to dogfighting stuff like phantoms, but overall dogfighting is not gonna be a forte. Now, you also see me sit at a little bit of altitude at the start of the match, and I do this to bait out missiles, and if I see plenty of them in the air, I can hopefully waste some missiles from the radar boys. Makes it a little bit more flyable when you go into the late game, so you don't have to hug the deck as much. Now I'm just going to be flying in. It's mostly going to be gun head-ons and magic 2s, because well, at this altitude my 530s are going to do absolutely nothing. So I crit the Yak 141. Don't think he's really going to mind too much, because that thing isn't too fast anyway, and it mostly turns with the VTOL. Just turn into that guy that doesn't want to try to take the head-on, and then we missile the third one. He doesn't even try to flare it. Well, he does at the very last second, but once his missile is close enough, your flares are gonna do absolutely nothing again. Yak 141 that we hit earlier comes back for revenge. He also hits us, and you can say that is lucky, but he should have been dead to begin with, so cope about it. He then lights a fat blunt and he sets himself on fire, and we just kind of fly away. We don't have the position or the speed. We get another missile, we flare it, we dodge it, and by the time we come back there, they're all dead, so that's the end of the game. Now we have a bit of a longer match. I try to get a missile kill with the 530F. Now this guy isn't really dodging, he's not chaffing, and he is just flying straight. Yet again, this missile does work quite well if they aren't paying attention, but then again, what missile doesn't, as long as it's not an AIM-9B. Get a first kill on the sidelines, I then decide to pull into the side of the enemy and see if I can stab them in the back. With this plane you want to stay with your team, but you don't want to come from the same direction, and you want to kind of desynchronize with your teammates, as I say in very many of my top tier videos. Now the F-16, I miss an absolutely piss-easy shot, however he gets slammed by an R-60 about 4 seconds later, so all is well. Now you can tell I'm looking around for my teammates, I'm trying to find where they are so I can position myself among them without being out of position. You don't want to come in from the same angle at the same time, because all that does, it makes it so that the enemy only has to turn into one person, and then he's gonna turn into everyone. Now I know there's an absolute fat blob of enemies on the other side of the map, and I know there's a lone F-16 behind us, so instead of going for the 1v6 in an absolute shit ass plane, I decide to go for the F-16 instead. I want to take the pressure off my team, I want to help my team win this team fight, and then if this blob remains bigger, we can engage their blob a little bit easier. And we get slammed by a missile, and not just any missile, it's gonna be a goddamn Vicker, which is, to be honest, pretty damn hilarious. But now, where do we go? We have two guys on our left, one of them just died, so it's only the F4J, and I see this massive blob on my front. And here I make my first mistake. Well, me almost slamming into the mountain was one of them. The second one is engaging the bigger blob instead of staying with my team. I'm kind of spearheading him. It's not a great idea, so instead I'm gonna turn back around and go for the F-16A. He's going to our backline. The magic actually misses. I think it's just a bad launch. And I go for guns because this guy is just completely oblivious. Back to the hangar we go. Now we turn around and we are again where we should have been in the first place. We are now kind of decentralized. We are not together with our team, but now I'm actually too far away, so I can't really help them out properly. And because it takes me so long to get there, by the time I come in my staggered kind of formation, the teammates are already just flying back towards me. So now I'm going head on with everyone, I can't launch my missiles properly, and I actually have to go on the defensive. Whereas if I had been like 3 kilometers closer, maybe the Magic 2 had hit the F-16 or I had a better launch, I would have been in position and I would have been able to kill 1 or 2 guys there without any issue. Instead now I'm on the defensive, I need to run away again, and I am being pressured. And with this plane, once you are pressured, you're probably going to end up popping a blood vessel because you are not going to be taking that pressure off. Now we dodge the F4J and then we have 3 guys directly in front of us. Now I'm going to try to kill one with the Magic 2 and it's obviously going to be the F-16, but they're all flying kind of in front of the sun and I'm not really feeling it. So I go for the first shot, we actually managed to get a hit in, but he doesn't actually die. Now I wanted to go for the F-14 here and I do so we launch the missile off. And we recommit towards the F-16. He is not going to be dodging that one. And now I need to kind of kill the F-16 because I don't want this guy to come back once I get slow with the F-4S. Now I will be able to turn into him somewhat. I'm going to use the terrain. We can now cut inside of his loop and we should be able to just... And that's the sad reality of this plane. It's a lot better as it once was. It's miles better than it was a year ago. However, you're still going to be very reliant on your team, and the fact that you only have 2 good missiles is just an absolute pain in the dick. And the fact that you are at 11.3 when you have planes like the MiG-21 BIS at 11.0, those are planes that you will struggle with. Those are planes that will definitely give you a lot of trouble. And it's a shame. The plane itself at 11.0 or maybe even 10.7 would have been okay if it lost the Magic 2s and maybe got something like Magic 1s. Because I do think that the Magic 2s at something like 10.7 would be completely ridiculous. But I think it would make this thing a lot more flyable and a lot more fun to play because it can actually utilize its strength somewhat. Or at least that's the way that I see it. Hope you enjoyed it. We are actually approaching 100k, which is still insane to me. And if we keep this trajectory up, we're probably gonna hit it in like a week. Which is a lot faster than I was anticipating it to be. So I really haven't prepared anything for a big celebration. I'm not really someone that celebrates milestones or birthdays and stuff like that. So I haven't decided yet, I'll have to see. But stay tuned, you'll see more of me very soon here.